Well, welcome,
Thank you, sir.
Ryan. Thanks for being here. Why are you here? I keep asking people that when I sit down with them of like, I obviously have reasons why I want to connect with people. And I know a little bit, if I know a little bit about their story, or what they do kind of in the digital world. But for you, what was kind of the reason that you said, yeah, I'll sit down for an hour and chat?
I mean, we've been friends for a decade going.
Right.
So anytime that friends doing something that is fun, creative, I always like to jump in, support. And you've also helped me out too in my aspect of life. You drifted me away from Canon into the arms of Sony.
Heck yeah.
So
And isn't your life so much better because of it?
my life is clearer.
Clearer. Yeah, exactly.
Sharper,
higher def, all the things.
more color.
Yeah.
I can see better. It's like I'm looking through the perfected 2020 vision.
That you wish you had.
Yeah.
But you don't now.
Hopefully I'll get LASIK this year and be able to get that. So
cool.
We'll see.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. One of the reasons why I even kind of wanted to get into this was I kept having conversations with people where halfway through I was like, dang, I wish more people were here. In one-on-ones, when people are really talking about their passion, talking about their craft, they just, so much of their real self comes out and they get really passionate and they have a lot to say. And I don't feel like generally we're a culture that has deeper conversations or where people kind of open up or talk about the things that are bugging them or are kind of really at the root of like why they live their life and what are the things that drive them or what are the challenges they face. And so I just wanted to create a space where one, I could have that conversation. Like I just love this type of interaction. It's just intentional. It's on purpose. But then also I love the creative aspect of production and content. And so to get to use the equipment and the cameras and make cool videos and fun things that combine, my love of creativity and content creation, but then also like deep intentional conversations with people that actually means something. And so when someone walks away from this, hopefully, they have an hour's worth of content that not only is helpful for them maybe online if they're, trying to use that to grow a presence, but also it's like, hey, you had a great time and a good conversation. So tell me a little bit about what you do in the like digital space. Like, are you on socials? Are you on as an individual? Are you on as a business? Like, what is it that you do kind of in the internet world?
Right. So I have, I would say 2 different spectrums. So I have my personal and then I have my business. So I own a sneaker company at Relentless Heat. And that's where I operate my entire business from. All of my sales are through Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
So predominantly there. You've gotten on to me many times about not being as proactive in the content creation.
Yeah.
And you're right. I should definitely be more focused on creating content. The problem is that in my head, the way that I think I'm so money driven that I'm like, well, I'm going to spend time making money, not creating content that's not going to make me immediate money.
Right.
But that's definitely something that, I try to do. And so I was creating reels and doing stuff like that. And those were popping off. I was getting 25,000 views, 20,000 views, and I was just starting, and they were doing pretty great. And then I had a friend who does reels and, he kind of convinced me to start doing these street interviews. And so I started doing those and I was just kind of doing it to get numbers. I wasn't really liking it. It wasn't my type of content. It wasn't what I was passionate about, but they were getting crazy views, dude. Some of them one video has 8,000 likes or something. And it just blew up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, man, this is what people watch. But I hate filming this.
Right.
And so I stopped kind of creating content after that. And just kind of I'm in a place right now where I'm trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do next? I've thought about doing a podcast. I've thought about, creating more sneaker content, and incorporating, bringing other people in to kind of help me do that. But as of right now, I'm just posting stupid things on my personal page and, getting in trouble.
So that's actually something that's really interesting and a difference that I don't think a lot of people realize, which is when you actually have a business, when you have a product and you kind of have sales, you approach social media differently. Because some people might hear, oh, 8,000 likes, that's not like huge. But if you're looking to sell a limited amount of inventory that you have, you only need so much attention before you're like maxing out on what you could do from a business perspective. So you don't need like millions and millions of views, because you have to get 20 million views on YouTube so that the ad money is like enough that you actually make money.
Yeah.
So like, how is what's your approach and kind of what are your goals, considering you're selling like an actual product and you're not just kind of looking to become famous for the sake of like having that clout?
Yeah, I think we all went through that. You, me, and Justin early on, where we just kind of had the idea of like, oh, we just want to be famous.
Right.
And now, like, you know, I'm at the stage of my life where I just don't give a shit. Oh, am I allowed to cuss? Sorry.
I wouldn't.
Let me start that over.
I can bleep that out. Don't worry.
All right. Bro, I'm a potty mouth. Yeah, I'm just in the stage of my life where I just don't care anymore. And instead of like I look at it as if I'm going to be quote unquote famous or have numbers, I want that to translate into financial gain.
Right.
And that's what matters to me. So the idea of like, oh, like I had 8,000 likes and 20,000 views, I was like, okay, that's cool. That doesn't mean anything.
Unless it translates.
Yeah. Unless it's translating into sales, then it doesn't mean anything to me. I don't care. And that's the thing, is I was creating this content that somebody, you know, was having me come out there and film with them, you know, do. And I just wasn't passionate about it. It wasn't bringing me in money, and it wasn't leading to sales. And so I just told them, I was like, hey, dude, like I'm just not going to film this anymore. I'd rather film stuff that's going to bring me revenue. Because at the end of the day, like, do you look at all these people that get famous for them, and then scandals happen, or they just get caught up in all this stuff and they get unhappy. Like, dude, I don't care about any of that stuff. I just want to make money, have a nice house, get a beautiful wife, chill out, and be able to retire early. Like, that's what I want to do. And being famous is not a part of that.
Yeah. Has that been helpful from a mental health perspective? Because like what I see, especially with people who are chasing stardom in the social media world. So they're chasing this goal of being an influencer, however they define that. So maybe for them it's 100,000 followers, for maybe them it's 1 million followers, but they're chasing just the idea of having success in numbers. But because that's the goal, the roller coaster of emotions that they feel as they ride the wave of the algorithm and whether or not it's in their favor can really take a toll on their own mental health and the way they're experiencing and their joy. Do you feel like because for you, the success on social is directly correlated to whether or not you're making sales, that you've been able to kind of remove your own like personal frustrations in terms of attention? Like, has that been helpful for you, or are you still kind of emotionally riding the roller coaster of social success because it's attached to your finances?
No, because I don't think it's attached necessarily to my finances. Because it doesn't matter like how many people like my stuff, dude. I have a big clientele,
right?
And I already have people that buy my shoes. I'm at the point where I can't get enough inventory, and that's what I'm like.
Right.
It's causing me stress. It's causing me panic. I'm like, okay,
it's a good problem to have.
Like, yeah, right. You know, it's a good problem, but it's like, oh my gosh, like I need to get more resources, and that's what stresses me out. The other stuff, I'm like, dude, like I don't think I've posted on my like Instagram page for the business and I think since December, maybe January.
Slacker.
Which I'm slacking. But at the end of the day, dude, I'm like, I'm bringing in a substantial amount of money
right
every month.
You have the success.
And I have the success. Like, I don't need to post like on the page. I don't see, because it's the type of business that I'm in is more so like word of mouth. If I was a like retail store where I was going to have like the same shoe and the same quantities, like, and I could like reorder those and it wasn't like so limited, I could see the importance in that, but I don't think for what I'm doing that it's necessarily that valuable. So I just don't attach it to my mental health in any aspect when it comes to that. I do sometimes when my personal page, like, we'll see, like, you know, if a picture I post doesn't get enough likes or whatever, like, part of me kind of has that, like, still mindset of, oh my gosh,
the insecurity kind of creeps
the insecurity.
in.
But then I remind myself, like, dude, it's the algorithm. Like, I never post, and of course, like, it's not going to be shown to a lot of people. So that's why I'm not going to get, it's not because people don't like me. And I'm sure that there's some people that follow me. It's like, okay, whatever, haters, that's fine. But it's because it's not being shown to people. And I like, how can I control that? That's Zuck. So I'll let Zuck control that, and I'll control my piece.
Yeah, no, that's good. I kind of think about, like, when people say, oh, I posted and I didn't get enough likes, and that really affects their day. My kind of question, and that I am that person as well. So I totally understand that. I always kind of go to, well, what does it mean if I did get the likes? Like, let's say it did take off. Or let's say a reel I posted gets 100,000, 200,000 views. What does that mean? Like, that idea is desirable because I'm told that it is. But, like, what is the actual outcome? Unless it's this many more people who are reaching out to book shoots, this many more people who are wanting to collaborate, or this number of people who have connections now that allow, you know, me to open up into new spaces. But so much of the idea of it is more important than what it actually does. Because if I think about every viral video that I watched today, as much as I laughed and as much as I enjoyed them, I'm not thinking about any of those people.
Right.
And so I'm looking at the things that have had the most success, and they don't matter to my life at all. Why would I assume that if my content went viral in any way, that it would matter to anyone else? And that's been a really freeing perspective to have, because there are people who I know that were verified before you could pay for it. Mm-hmm. You know, who have 10, 20, even 100,000 followers. And they are not just not having the success that they hoped they'd have, but they're miserable because the comparison of what they thought it would bring versus what it has actually brought is way bigger than they could have ever imagined. And then they're just like living in that disappointment. And so that's been really freeing for me to say, like, oh, well, if I only got 30 likes on a post, that's no different than if I would have gotten 300. Like, my life is the same either way. And
it's never going to be enough, by the way. So
right.
once you hit that mile marker, it's going to be another goal that you set ahead. And once you don't reach that, you're going to have a frustration and stuff like that.
Right.
And then also, if you do have one video that takes off and then it returns all back to normal and you're not getting those views, then you're going to think, okay, is the content that I'm pushing out not good enough like that
right.
video? At the end of the day, it's like, dude, it has nothing to do with who you are. It has nothing to do with your values. It has nothing to do with, it has some to do with content that you post, right? Like, you got to post good content. But the majority of the problem is the algorithm. And that's something that is completely out of your control. And all you can do is try to get onto that algorithm, try as hard as you can to push yourself to be in a certain position. And once you get to that certain position, then, you'll fall into the right algorithm. But outside of that, you can't control anything. So why keep shooting for it?
Do you feel pressure to be more active on social? Like, do you have this sense of, like, I should be doing more? Like, what I'm hearing is you have as much success as you could want from your business because you obviously have more, demand than supply, which is a great problem to have. So do you still feel pressured to, like, maintain some level of social media presence?
I'm honestly at the place where I just like I was thinking the other day, I was sitting down and I was like, dude, I just want to delete all social media. And if it weren't for my business, like I would have deleted it.
Right.
And then I went to I deactivated like my personal, and for some reason, like when I opened Instagram, it like logged me back into it. And then so I'm like, now I have to wait another week before I can deactivate. I'm like, oh, this is so dumb.
Right.
But I just I just hate social media. The only social media that I spend a lot of time on is TikTok. And it's because like I just watch the like dumbest videos nonstop. I don't spend time on Instagram. Like I never look through the feed. I can't tell you the last time that I looked through the feed. It'll be like the first, like when I open the app, like the first picture that pops up, I might like that, but I never scroll. I look at stories for like 3 seconds. I'll pop through like just the main 10 people that I like seeing, and then I hop off of it. I'm just Instagram and Facebook is just not my thing when it comes to that. I'm like on Facebook for sneaker groups, and I'm like constantly looking through the sneaker groups and buying and selling and doing that. But in terms of like feeling like I need to personally have a presence on Instagram, I'm like, I don't. But then it also, I'm like, if I delete it, then like how will I be able to connect with some people? Or like, what if there's a cute girl, and I'm trying to connect with her, but then like because I delete my Instagram, like I lose access to that. So I just like think of like stupid things like that. But
well, I mean, it feels stupid, but then it's also
valid.
Extremely important to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, it's interesting because I've heard some, women say, oh, a huge green flag is when a guy doesn't have Snapchat because, of all the stereotypes and, assumptions that come with like someone wanting your snap. But not having an Instagram, I've heard it can be like weird. Like, oh, are you not involved in like the whole rest of the world that we're all involved in? And understanding what the conversations are out in the world matters to people. Like if like so much of what's relatable in real life conversation, like I see this regularly. The things people are laughing about are shared experiences that they had online.
Yeah.
Oh, it reminds me of this meme. Or, oh, did you see that one thing? Or, oh, did you see this clip? Like, even in real life relationships, people are still referencing their shared experience online.
It's kind of depressing.
And I don't really know how to reconcile that, especially with something like online dating.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, should I take it seriously? Because I don't meet a lot of women who take it seriously because they have almost nothing good to say about the men they've met online. Which, fair point. I'm sure, there's a ton of bad experiences. So, like, does the online presence matter at all? Does it matter only when it's your interests, or does it matter, like, completely? And like, how do you deal with that? Because I'm actually not on TikTok that much, and I've run into like, oh, I'm out of the conversation.
Yeah,
like I'm not able to participate in this like shared inside joke because I don't have the knowledge because I didn't have this experience, and that's kind of weird. And so, is it better for your real life relationships that you are on the platforms, and yet the really interesting meta conversation on all the platforms is how the platforms are ruining our lives, and we're all depressed and sad because we're comparing ourselves to other people, and social media is like ruining us. So it's like, yeah, but that conversation's happening on the platform. So how do you deal with that? And that's something that I've run into, and I've also contemplated like, hey, should social just be purely professional?
Yeah.
Is there an aspect of personal that's good? Do my relatives want to know what I'm up to? Is that a good reason to, stay somewhat engaged? Friends from other cities, people who I don't see every day. Like, I like staying up to date with other people's lives. And so like, how do you balance that, and what like is the best? But you don't feel like professional pressure to like keep up with your business because that's like the thing you're supposed to do as a business.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. Like I see in the aspect like where there's an ability to relate to people with things going on. Like if you see it on TikTok, like all that stuff. But to me, I'm like, in any of my conversations that I have in person, we don't talk about things that happen on social media. We talk about life, things that happen. And chances are, like, really, like when you said thinking of like, you want to see like, oh, how other people are doing that live in different cities. Dude, I just don't care. And like, it's sad, but I only care about a few select people. And outside of that, like I don't think about anybody else. Like I'm sometimes maybe a thought will pop in my head and be like, oh, let me check in on them. And I'm not going to look at their social media. What I do is I FaceTime them or I call them.
Right.
Because I want to hear from them. I'm like, hey, like, what's going on in your world? I never go on like their page. The only time that I like really use Instagram to look at somebody's profile is if
trying to go on a date. Yeah,
if I'm trying to go on a date, I'm like, oh, this is a cute girl. Let me just hit her up or whatever. So I don't feel pressure. I do though understand the aspect of like, if you don't have social media, you can almost be looked at as weird. Like, oh, is this guy like a serial killer? Like, because they like, it's almost like you need to, because I feel the same way. I have to be able to see that this person is a real person, that they look the way that they look or say they look, right? And that they have a normal life. Because if I'm following somebody, right, and she has 0 posts, a red flag kind of goes up to me because I'm like,
Well, there's also just like half of every account you see on a dating app is a fake spam.
Exactly.
Whatever. So it's impossible to know just from that. So then it's helpful to have the kind of like,
and that's why I use Snapchat, which is funny enough because I kind of use it as an authentication thing. So I'll like get a Snapchat just so that I can see that they'll send me a picture of themselves, and I'll kind of joke. I'll be like, oh, like send me a picture with you with the shoe on your head. And I had a girl do that one time because that's
hardcore.
Well, she just seemed fake, and she was trying to meet up, and I'm like, I'm not gonna.
Oh yeah, if a beautiful girl is taking the initiative to ask to hang out with you, that is so rare.
Exactly.
That I don't blame you for assuming that it might be. I was sketchy.
Like, this is definitely some 40-year-old dude like sitting on his couch like with some popcorn in his belly button, pretending to be somebody. But she sent me the picture, which was cool, and then we hung out after that.
Have you had like people get offended that you would even suggest that they're not real?
No, because I don't ever be like, oh, like, hey, how do I know if you're real? I like do it as a game. Like,
why is that an offensive thing? I've run into this many times where just mentioning that I would like to confirm their identity, that's offensive to people. And I'm like, if someone did that to me, I'd be like, oh, you value safety and security and like wise choices. And yet it's crazy to me that almost anytime I express concern or potential like questioning of whether or not you're really who you say, it's immediately defensive. It's like, oh, I don't need to I don't have to prove myself to you.
Yeah. It's like you don't.
It's like you don't have to, but also if you expect me to like engage in relationship with you, yes, you do. Like, I think that's a legitimate expectation, is to present yourself authentically.
Dude, did I tell you what happened to me when I was 19 on a dating app? No. And this is why I have trauma. I took a girl. Okay, so this girl said she was like 23. So I'm like, oh, I'm 19, like older girl, whatever. Like, she's cute. And I could only really see like her face in the pictures, whatever. And that summer I go to work at a youth camp, like through Lady Lodge, kind of like Pine Cove or whatever.
Yeah.
But you do Penile. But like one of those camps. And this girl's writing to me all summer, dude, sending me a letter every week. I'll write back. Like, she sent me a care package with like goldfish and gum and all this stuff. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this girl's like for real. Like, she says she's loves committed. God. She's praying for me. She's like writing out Bible verses, like doing all this stuff. I'm like, wow, like when I get back home, like I'm going to have me a woman. And I hadn't met her yet. Which was, and so I at this time, did you ever meet Hayden?
Maybe.
So
I'd have to see his face.
Me and him like one day were just hanging out, and she like, and this is like the day after I got back, and I was like, oh, like let's all hang out, because I kind of wanted somebody else to be there just in case.
Always have a chaperone.
Yeah, even though it's been like a whole, a couple months or whatever. And when she gets in the car, I get this gut wrenching feeling. Like, dude, I just feel so sick to my stomach. So we end up going to UT because she says she's like a senior at UT.
Wait, so you saw her?
Yeah, she got in the car.
So she looks like what you looks like what you said. Yeah. I'm just waiting to see if there was some sort of like
exactly like.
Okay, so she is who she said she is.
She is
visually.
Visually, she is who she says she is.
Continue.
So then she, we all go to UT. She said that she like it was a senior at UT or whatever. So I asked her, okay, what's the name of that building? She doesn't know the name of the building. I'm like, dude, I don't even go to UT and I know the name of that building. It's the Tower.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what's the name of this building? She doesn't know the name of this building. So I'm like, okay, something's up. Like, this girl's is not real. So I cut it short. We drop her off, whatever. And I just like shoot a text to a friend. I'm like, hey, do you know this person? It's like, yeah, she's a senior in high school. And I'm like, shut the heck up. This girl was like 16. And apparently she had been doing this to a bunch of like older dudes. Thankfully, I have the Lord on my side, and I got the conviction and that gross feeling that something wasn't right. But like, how was I to know? Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, she looked older. And that's,
yeah, and in today with like tell. Makeup and all the like fashion and style, like people can look a lot older or younger than they are.
For real. And so I just, I told her, I was like, seriously, like, that's disgusting that you would do that. Like, I could, I can get in trouble, like all this stuff. Like, we didn't do anything, obviously, like I didn't even touch her, dude. I didn't even hug her. I was just like, I want to get away from her as like soon as possible. And yeah, so from now on, dude, I have this trauma. Like, I will ask for a driver's license, like, and I'll just play it out to be like, oh, I just want to see what your driver's license picture looks. I'm like, dude, I don't care about the picture. I want to know. I want to know that birth date. I want to make sure that you are legal, because dude, guys will always lose that case when it came. Like, if a girl tried to
guys
like
will lose,
will always. So I'm like, dude, I'm protecting myself in all aspects, and I'm gonna have witnesses around. So that's my trauma, and that's why like I'm very like persistent on checking to make sure. Okay, is this a real human being? Because I've been catfished before too. Like,
yeah, I think most of us have been catfished. But like, how much investment did you put in before for it to be like, okay, well, at this point, like, we've been talking for months. It's kind of fair to be like, hey, you didn't, I mean, like, we've been talking, but like, you didn't, there's still this really critical piece of information that's kind of necessary.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with like where you live. Like, people who have first dates at their own place, that's wild to me.
Yeah, I've had a few of those, but it's just because I wasn't thinking right,
Right, and I guess it's one thing if you're kind of like from lease to lease, and so you're not gonna like, be there in 9 months or whatever. But I've had friends who've had guys come over to their house, and it's always presented in like, oh, I'll make you dinner, and it'll be a fun romantic thing. And sure, 9 times out of 10, it's been fine.
But then you just have that one crazy dude.
But there is no amount of good dates that are convenient because they were at your house and he came over and it was cute, whatever. There is no amount of good times that will ever make the one bad time worth it.
Exactly.
And there are some things in life where you kind of weigh the, pros and cons, risk reward, and you say, yeah, if I can get like enough positives, like I can deal with the negatives. That's just not something you should ever risk. But the internet's crazy. And
that's something I vet out too. Like, if a girl asks me to come over, I know exactly what she wants. So I know that this isn't, like, this isn't probably a girl that I'm going to end up dating. And so I don't waste my time. Vice versa. Like, I've had moments where I've just like, oh, like, I'm going to invite a girl over or whatever.
Yeah.
And none of those will ever move into anything fruitful. But yeah, man, I think social media is very scary in that aspect, because, dude, you can put on so many filters, edit, Photoshop, do all that stuff. Dude, I've like seen a girl literally be completely different in person. And I'm just like, what on God's earth are you thinking? And I didn't tell her that. I didn't want to be rude.
Right.
But like, it's almost like it's disrespectful to do that to somebody. Like, you're so ashamed of what you look like that you're going to put somebody in an uncomfortable position to force to be on a date with you, to spend their own money to do these things, thinking that you're somebody else. and you're not. So I just be careful with social media, man.
That's a really interesting concept, which is what's the line between someone's pursuit of trying to feel beautiful and trying to find confidence in their image. How much effort can they put in until they've changed their natural look so much that then they're not an authentic representation of themselves? Because what are you supposed to do like with that? Yeah. You know, like to me, there are makeup tutorial videos where the whole point of the video is to show like what makeup can do. And I will forever be on the, hey, if this is something that for you gives you a level of confidence and security and freedom to walk out and be a little bit more, feel a little bit better, then you should do that.
Yeah.
So I will never be like, oh, it's superficial to put on makeup or anything like that. But there, to me, needs to be an extreme at which, hey, this is now so different from your natural, like, visual appearance that I'm not actually looking at you anymore. I'm appreciating your skill in this area, but it's not you at a more fundamental way. And it's like the difference between that can be really surprising and hard to like balance. But you can't really tell someone, hey, don't wear so much makeup because you don't look the same, especially if their goal is to do it so that they feel better. And that's just a really interesting like conversation to navigate.
And that's why I always get in trouble on social media and why I don't want to be on it, because
people call you out for
being real. Like I'll be real and too real for some people. You know, like I posted a picture the other day of me, like it was on a swing set, and I was like, scroll right to see what I think about you. And the second picture was me flicking the camera off.
Yeah.
And dude, I had DMs up the wall of all these people just telling me how wrong I am and how bad of a Christian I am and how I shouldn't be doing this. Dude, I lost like 30 something followers, like all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, some of these people I'm in the exact same rooms with, and I've seen them drop F-bombs,
right,
flick people off. I'm like, people just act so fake on social media. And that's why like I hate being on it, because I'm like, you're not going to get a real side of anybody. And then when you are real, you get freaking scrutinized. It's like, wouldn't you rather follow somebody who's authentic and be like, oh, you know, or somebody, you know, that's completely fake? Like, makes no sense.
Well, it's really just a numbers game. It's like you're never going to have as many friends in real life as you do followers online.
Oh my gosh.
Even if you're like, you don't have to be famous for that to be true. Like if you go look at most people's followers, if you put all of them in a room, it probably would need to be a pretty huge room, because I would say the average person has at least a few hundred followers between the relationships and the connections they have. But those aren't all your like close friends. They're not people you talk to regularly. And so it's like, I have to create a version of myself that all of you are good with. But then I also have to have a more authentic version for my real life friends in my real life community, so that they feel like they actually know me. But if I have a disparity between the real life person that I am in real life in person and who I present on social media, now I'm inauthentic, because I've created some dissonance in between people's perceptions. And it's hard. And that's why I think most people just always kind of stay above reproach and say, I'm just only going to post the happy, nice, good, encouraging things, because if I complain, if I say something about my life that's hard, someone else who has it worse than me is going to look at me and say, you don't even know.
Yeah.
And that probably is true. Like, no matter what we're going through, someone else has it worse in a different way, in a much more probably profoundly negative way than we do. But it's not fair for their experience to trivialize yours. But at the same time, you have to be considerate of those around you, and you don't know what other people's experience is. And so we just have to always be safe. Yeah. but then it feels stifling.
Yeah. If I go on my Instagram, like I can look, okay, this is exactly how many people I talk to in real life. And I'm like, okay, there's a max of 6.
Right.
And then I like actually text and talk to in real life. Like, and almost 2,000 people follow me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's less than 0.1%.
Right.
And people care so much about the 99.99999% that they neglect sometimes the 1%ers. And so in my head, I'm like, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, I see these people. I don't really care about any of these people. I'm like, I can see that they're like following me, whatever. I watch some of their stuff, maybe. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I can give 2 craps about if they just bought a new car, if they just went to Ibiza, if they just did this or that. Like, I don't, that's why I don't scroll through this feed. I'm just like, right. I don't care. And so when I post on Instagram, I kind of put that filter on myself now. I'm like, how many people actually are going to care what I post? And that's why I rarely post. I think I have like 9 posts or whatever. Because I'm just like, who cares? Like, you want to keep up to a certain standard. You want people to know that you're alive. Okay, yeah, whatever. You want people to think that you're cool with having a couple pictures. I keep some pictures up there because I'm like, if there's a girl that I end up talking to, like, I want to make sure that she sees, okay, I'm a real human.
Right.
But outside of that, it's like, what is the point of this?
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about your like sneaker culture world. So it's totally foreign to me. I know next to nothing about the intricacies and nuances of shoes. And I know that it's a huge thing. It's blown up, at least in mainstream culture.
Yeah.
Probably in the last, 5 years, 10 years?
I mean, it's been...
Well, it's always been a thing, but like shoe game has not perpetually been focused a lot on like athletes, like brands and lines, right? Or has that always been the case?
No, I think that there's since Jordan, there's been a hype around like sneakers, a desire to have like shoes. There was an underground reselling like culture that was like very popular in the early 2000s. And then I think in the heighten of social media, reselling became like a thing that you could actually like have a career in, especially now with all these platforms and stuff like that. And so I would say in the last like decade, it just kind of like took off in storm. And even into like the last couple of years, like I've seen just such a shift in the amount of people trying to do it. And like, I'm so happy I got in when I got in, because dude, it is a oversaturated market as it is right now. But once you have a loyal set of clients, it's like, it's fine. But sneaker culture is constantly evolving. And I kind of look at it like, if you have, let's say, camera gear, right? There's going to be a new lens that drops every year, probably a few, and you're going to want it. It's like hype. It's like, man, like this is like, the new 24-70, like look at all these features that you probably geek out on.
Right.
It's the same thing with shoes. It could be the exact same silhouette and like almost identical colors, but because it's a new thing, like people want it. So there's always a hype. There's always something. And especially if there's a collaboration with somebody, like the Travis Scott Jordan 1s just dropped out. And like, you're like, okay, I have no idea what that means. That
I know who those people are and the shoe, right. But yeah.
So it's $1,000 shoe that just came out. Like retail is $160, but it resells for $1,000. So
how does that work?
It's because
that makes no sense.
It's because it's so limited. The drop is so limited. You can't just like go to a store and buy it. So they drop it on these foot sites, and there's only a certain amount of pairs. So I think for this release, it was like 55,000 pairs. And there's probably like 4 to 5 million accounts in the US, 4 to 5 million people that are trying to go for that one shoe. So
it's like a lottery initially, and then
correct,
after that.
And then if you can get it, so if you get it for retail, then you'll get to make a good bit of profit. I didn't get one for retail, but I got one after retail from somebody. I paid like $750 for it, and I made the remainder of the profit.
Right.
And that's kind of where I make my money. Like, I just buy collections. I'll buy shoes off of people. I buy I even buy off other resellers, like these resellers that try to do it, and they just realize, okay, like, I don't know what I'm doing, and they'll just like need quick cash, and I'm like, here's 10,000, here's 20,000,
right.
Give me that, give me all those shoes, and then I sell it. Like, that'll all be gone in like 2 days.
Is that crazy accounting for you?
Oh my God, yeah. But I've like that's my like bread and butter. I love numbers. That's how I'm driven. Like, my brain, I keep everything so structured, so organized. Like, I don't miss a beat.
That's so much.
Yeah, nothing slips past me, dude, when it comes to numbers.
Well, right, but it's just the, like, not even the numbers piece of it, but just like the ledger, like keeping track of business expenses versus, you know, making money, like your profit versus what your business spends versus what your business makes versus what you make, and all those things.
Well, it's very easy for this type of business because I know what I buy the shoe at. So like I pretty much have an Excel sheet, right?
Yeah.
I have the name of the shoe, I have the size, what I paid for, what it sold for, and my profit. So those are really the only 3 numbers that I need to document. My cut, I don't really take one because I have like a job, right?
Right.
And that pays all my bills. So everything that I make outside of that, I just throw right back into the business, or I use it to buy myself like some shoes that I want. And I just keep capital. So really, like, I have this money in my bank,
right?
But I don't look at it as like, oh, I've paid myself with this money. Like, it's just sitting in my business account, revolving constantly. And so I know exactly what I spend at the end of every month. I'm like, okay, this is the exact amount that I spent on shoes. This is the exact amount that I sold the shoes for. And this is my exact amount of profit that I made. And I keep track every single day. I have an app that every single day I put the profit that I made that day. And then it's just all like I have basically 2 different forms to match up to make sure that all the numbers are accurate. So
that's like a security check to make sure that you're.
Yeah. And they always are, bro.
Right.
I never miss on numbers. I'm like, so
if you've just been essentially, if you're not paying yourself, you're just bringing your number is just growing. Like, your profit is just growing exponentially. So what is it?
The more you buy.
So are you just getting more? So are you just increasing your inventory regularly? Like, your profit's really just changing your inventory?
Right. So for example, like, let's say you start with like $1,000. You can really only make so much off that $1,000.
Right.
But if you build that up to like 30,000, you can make so much more with that 30,000 than you can with that $1,000. And so that's the name of the game. And once I get to a kind of comfortable place, like once I have, I'd say like 200,000 just sitting in my bank account, like I'll kind of take a slow roll and kind of ease back a little bit, or I'll let somebody else kind of just come in and do all this work for me. But I just want to make sure I have that sitting in the bank account. So I'm just kind of building it up before I really, because like, what do I need to spend it on, right? Like my job pays every single bill. So there's nothing
like savings, investing, you know, all
right. But I have those
money.
I have those things also with my job. Like, you know, I have surplus. So
that's awesome.
And the investment to me, dude, I make way more investing that money into shoes and flipping in than if I were to put it into like a bond, or if I were to put it into stocks. Like, the quicker return is going to be through that.
Right. Assuming you take it at some point. Because right now, until you've paid it to yourself, all of the investment hasn't.
Right. But it's building up.
Paid out yet. Yeah, for sure.
So for example, like if I took my $3,000, so I started with $500.
Nice.
You know, and that 500,000 turned into a lot very quickly. Okay. If I would have put that $500 into a stock, 3 years later, that thing would probably maybe be worth 1,000 if it was a good stock.
Right.
Like, dude, I turned that 500 into multiple 6 figures. So that's the name of the game. I'm hustling so hard right now so that I can get that certain amount of income. And then I'm going to throw a huge chunk in just like a high risk, and that'll be my retirement.
What's the long game for the shoe business?
I think I'm always
brick and mortar.
No,
Never.
never.
Is there not an exclusive component, like a bougie kind of aspect to being able to have like a boutique shop that people can go into?
The only thing is you could charge more, right?
Right.
And you have people that are buying on impulse. So that's the thing. But I just don't think that justifies the overhead, the cost of goods,
right,
insurance, employees, all that stuff. Like, I just don't think it justifies any of that.
Right.
I have several friends that own sneaker stores, and they're like, yeah, like we make, good money, but it's like, it's expensive. Dude, they're paying like $12,000 a month in rent.
Right.
And then they got 5 employees that they got to pay. And then, all this stuff, like all that profit that you would have had if you would have just been independent is gone. But you did open yourself up to, now you have more clients because they're walking in the mall and they see like, oh, right, I want to buy these shoes on impulse. So it's kind of like a hit or miss. But where I'm at right now, dude, like I don't have a trouble moving inventory. There's no need for me to open up a store. I don't even think I have the capacity to open up a store, dude. I'm like, I've thought about it. I've even thought potentially of doing this, and this is like the only way that I will open a store, is if I buy a big property and I have like a barber shop, a tattoo shop, a sneaker store, all in like
your apartment.
No, not like in.
Oh, you wouldn't want to live like above where you like work?
Absolutely not. No. Like, I just like would want all that in like one room, like a gigantic space where there's a sneaker store, you have like a fleet of tattoo artists and like a tattoo shop, and then like 12 chairs. Because then I know that I'm going to make my rent off of these tattoo artists and these barbers. They're the ones that are going to be paying the entire mortgage, if not more. So then I know that it's free for me to basically sell my shoes. That's the only time that I thought about that. And I have a friend that does that. Oops, sorry. I have a friend that does that, and he just has a barbershop, and he makes like really good money because he has like 12 chairs in there. Their rent's I think like $5,000, but he charges like $400 a week per chair. So if you think about it, you're making like $14,000 a month.
Right.
Like that's $9,000 profit. He doesn't have to cut hair. He doesn't have to do any of that. He has to pay obviously the utilities, all that.
Yeah, he just do the overhead.
But his profit off of that would be like $6,000. So that, and to me, if I can get a property, do that, like I'll do that. But outside of that, just like a sole dedicated place, like a sneaker store, not worth it.
That makes sense. Yeah. I think it's like balancing the like classic definition of success and then what like the real world we're in now, because so many people just make a living online and don't ever need, like, drop shipping. It's a whole thing. It's like, hey, I don't even need to have my own place. Yeah. Just create and design things.
How often do people go to the malls these days anymore? Like they just don't. Not like how, like when we were in middle school, when we were in high school, like we would go hang out at the mall.
Yeah, and we were sad then.
Yeah.
That was sad when we were doing it.
And it's like now that's not the cool thing to do anymore. And so most of these people that go to the mall, like you're not making money Monday through Thursday, really.
Right.
You'll make foot traffic money on the weekends. So maybe Friday, probably Saturday, Sunday. If you have a barber shop and a tattoo shop attached to a sneaker store, people are waiting to get their hair cut. People are waiting to get their tattoos. I'm going to go look at the shoes real quick. Like, I'm here. That's going to bring in customers in itself. And then on top of that, like, you can promote it that you have a store so people come shop regardless. So that, to me, that idea is a lot better. It's just this day and age, like, dude, like people don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's like nobody's going to go out of their way to go to a sneaker store. I mean, some people do, but most normal people won't. But everybody's going to go to a barbershop.
Yeah, for sure. Do you feel because you own your own business and you kind of hustle on the side, does that like take away from your personal life?
Oh,
personal relationships?
100%. Yeah, dude, I'm the worst friend right now in this season of life. I'm the worst son. I'm the worst brother. I've had this conversation with people. I neglect everybody around me. And it's because I'm so focused. And that can be a problem.
Is there a timeline for you when you're going to stop being the worst?
Yeah, that's the question, right? It's something that I need to work on, and I need to change immediately. I feel like I just have an immense amount of apathy. So I'm just numb, and I don't really care. And so that's kind of where I'm struggling. And I know, like, I feel bad that I don't care, and I want to be able to care. And so I need to be better at, calling my mom, checking in. Like, I talk to them every single day, but it's because she calls me.
Right.
I need to be better at calling my friends, texting them, being like, hey, you good? How's everything? Good. Let's hang out. Like, dude, I don't hang out with people anymore. Like, I'll hang out maybe once a week, but most of the time, dude, I'm just dialed in. I'm focused on business. I'm focused on growing. If I'm not working my corporate job, I'm like sitting there, like, I'll be watching sports and like posting shoes and getting ready to sell. So, it's definitely awful. And then I have like my moments where I'm like, okay, well, I need to like go on a date. So I was like, hit up a girl and then like hanging out or whatever.
Yeah.
But I need to be a lot more intentional about maintaining the relationships that I have before I lose them.
How do you feel about our culture of dating today?
It's the worst.
Why is it the worst?
Because there's no romance anymore. It's like we want the easy way, and it takes a lot to be romantic, to put in effort, to do all these things. Like, it takes a lot. So I don't know, man. I just think that if we lived like 20 years sooner, like, we'd be able to, experience it. That's why I think there's just like marriage isn't happening. A lot of divorces are happening. Like, people just stop trying. They associate love with feelings, and that's not the case. Like, love is action, and we just don't try anymore. I even notice it, man. Like, I'll go on a date or whatever, and I'm just like, dude, this small talk is. I just don't feel like it.
Right.
I do not feel like talking about it. I don't care to like get to know the small little details. Like, it's just like whatever.
But that's a part of romance.
It is.
Part of romance is
I'm a terrible dater.
Taking the time to learn, to listen, and then to remember. Right? Like, being able to say, hey, the last time we talked, you mentioned that you were trying to figure out this thing with your backyard. Like, did you figure that out? Like, did you get your fence fixed?
Yeah.
Paying attention to things. Right. And so that's the double-edged sword, because I agree with you. Small talk can feel tedious, in that if it's pointless and you feel like it's really about nothing. But at the same time, being romantic can look a lot more like, I was present, I looked you in the eyes and heard the things that you said, I remembered them, and then I took the time to follow up later because you were someone that meant enough to me that I would try to do that. Do you get like good feedback from dates?
I don't go on a lot of dates anymore. That's the thing. Like, I'm a terrible dater. Are you
a part of the problem then?
I'm 100% a part of the problem. Yeah. I don't, I just prioritize my time like in different ways. And like, I wish, like, I have moments where I'm like sitting there and I'm lonely and I'm like, oh, like, if only I had a beautiful girl that could be here with me to like help me in this and like partner with me and just like be support and all. Like, I think about moments like that, and then I'm like, I'm not going to get that just sitting here on my couch working.
Correct.
I have to go meet somebody. I have to go put in effort. I have to go do something, and I'm not doing these things. So therefore I will not be able to meet somebody. So it's getting myself out of that, that hole. And I'm trying. Like, I just re-downloaded Hinge. So
I hear that's the good one.
I don't mess with the other ones, bro. It's just a bunch of thought pockets.
Harsh.
It's true. But yeah, it's still a lot of effort. I'm like, dude, like, this small talk is so
well, what gets your attention? Like, what for you is the draw? What for you stands out, or is what, you look for?
In dating apps?
Yeah. And like relationships in this romance that you seek.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want somebody that's like extremely clingy, right? Like, so that's like part of it. Like, I'm scared to like get into this relationship and then it distract me from what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, obviously there has to be a little bit of distraction there.
Well, you need to show someone that you can prioritize them in some capacity.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, in my head, I want somebody who's able to partner alongside me and help me achieve goals, not prohibit me from achieving goals. And I've had that in the past, like where I've like talked to girls and, you know, we've talked for like a couple months, and in those couple months, like I just felt like I completely derailed and lost focus. And I'm like, okay, this person is taking my focus away from, you know, my business, and not in a good way. Like, you know, I don't feel motivated to do those things because I'm more motivated to spend time with them. And it's like, that's not right. I need to focus on my business. So if somebody was like, you know, if the woman was like, hey, like, how can I help you today? Like, can I help you package up shoes and shit? I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, I'll marry you right now. You know?
Dang, that's some high expectation.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you say, what do I look for? Like, obviously, like, I'm not expecting that out of anybody.
You're not expecting like some weird helpers person to come in and just do your chores for you, whatever.
But just somebody who understands like where I'm at and wants to like partner alongside me in my goal. Even if, like, you don't have to do any of the work, but you can like sit there and respect me doing work and just like do your own thing. Like, we can just be in each other's presence without you feeling like you need the attention 100% of the time. That's like the main thing.
But if love is not about feelings, it's about actions, what level of action is fair for them to expect from you when it comes to investing in your relationship? Because you growing a business is not exactly meaningfully romantic to them personally.
That's harsh. Just kidding.
But like, what's a fair expectation, I guess, then from women to have of you when it comes to like you investing in their relationship?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I think there should be like, if she should be able to be confident enough and be like, hey, this is like the things that I desire.
Right.
And if it's somebody that I want to pursue, then I'm going to meet those things to my best ability because it's somebody that I love. I just haven't met a girl that's been like that. The girls that I've talked to as of recent have all been like, and I say as of recent because I really haven't talked to anybody recently. The last one was like beginning of last year. Dude,
oh wow, yeah,
that's crazy. And like, it was just not. There was not great communication there.
Mm-hmm.
So like, she would feel a certain way, and then I'd be like, well, okay, you didn't tell me that. So like, how am I supposed to know? And then like, she would do certain things that would just like annoy me. And then I'm like, I would communicate that. And because I communicated that, like, then her feelings would get hurt. So I'm like, it's communication. Everything's about communication. And like, if she's going to communicate to me like, hey, I agree to, you know, to be, you know, respectful of your business, but I just require that you at least take me on like a date every week, and you give me this set amount of time every day to just like ask me questions, check in on me, like, you know, talk and like that. Like, okay, perfect. Let's do that. Not like sit there and be like needy and wanting all the attention. I'm like, my brother, I can't do that for you.
Right.
So
it's really more for you just about managing expectations from the beginning.
Yeah. Making sure like, hey, we communicate effectively. We have things in place to make you feel loved, to make you feel special, but also like feel a sense of like respect for the other person's dealings per se.
Dang. Yeah, it's hard. It's a really weird landscape to navigate relationally. I still don't feel like I've figured it out. I mean, not that I could ever figure it out, but just it feels like every 6 months there's a new right way to approach relationships, to approach dating, but also not dating, because we're in a weird world right now where like dating is not really a thing in any sort of official or more formal sense. It's a lot more like we're talking until we've both decided that we're ready to say we're more than just talking. And the ambiguity of like, what does talking mean? And what are the expectations of who else you're talking to and all the things. And if you were to dare ask for clarification, you are stepping over the boundary of expecting too much of the other person and all of that stuff. It's really...
Dude, it is so frustrating having like just a spectrum of like somebody who doesn't understand like communication in that aspect of like, hey, are we talking? Because I don't waste my time, dude. I'm like, I'll tell you off the jump. And some of these girls are like, well, I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, okay, I get it. Like, you need your time. But if you're not trying to formulate something seriously, then I don't have anything else for you. Like, I don't have time to waste. I'm not going to butter your coat, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not here to play relationship like parent for both of us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I just find it so frustrating this day and age to do that, to not have those expectations set clear. And so that's why, like, I just feel like I haven't been dating, is because I'll be real. I'm like, hey, I'm not here to waste your time. I don't want to waste mine. This isn't going to work. It's not going to work. No hard feelings. You do you. I'll do me. Yada, yada, yada. And they're like, well, that's kind of harsh.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm saving you from potential heartbreak.
Yeah, there's a balance, because I think some people, if you approach it too serious, too fast, then they're like, well, come on. Like there's some level of, you know, just casual interaction that needs to happen organically before I want to like dive into DTRing this and planning for the future. But that often becomes so much of it that you stop having any real conversation, and then you're 3 months in and you're like,
what is going on?
Who are we? Do you have any questions for me or anything that you're interested in?
Yeah. Do you know the Muffin Man?
I do know the Muffin Man.
I know you're working. I know that you're working, like, you have a corporate job, right?
Yeah,
you work for a law firm.
Yeah, I have a full-time position.
But I know there was a part in your life where you decided, like, hey, I want to kind of transition to doing photography more full-time, doing creative content more full-time. I remember you said you were like opening up, you know, you thought about opening up like a business with your friend.
Yeah. So I started a company with a friend of mine. Mm-hmm.
Is that still going?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, like, I guess, what moment did you decide, okay, I'm going to take this leap in faith? And like, what did that take? And do you think that maybe you're ever going to take that full jump where it's like, okay, I'm just going to be 100% free solo?
Yeah. So I would say I didn't take a leap of faith, because one of the things that I value most is stability and security, and being able to rely on certain things for what I know I need. And so I knew that as much as I loved photography and video and content creation, I never wanted to get to a position where I was compromising what I loved to pay the bills. As weird as it sounds, I really value a W-2. Having a salary, knowing that I'm going to have the income regularly, is really fundamental to me. From just how I want to live my life to how I make decisions. I don't ever want to be in a situation where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the things I know I need to do because I don't know if I'm going to have the work. And so I made a really conscious decision right after school that I was going to work for someone full time and be salaried. And even if it wasn't my dream job, even if it wasn't all the creative and amazing things that I could ever want to do, the security and comfort and stability and peace that comes with knowing that you're going to get paid twice a month, it's this amount of money, you can rely on that. That was something that I didn't want to sacrifice, because that piece is so much more important to me than feeling like I've made it on my own from a entrepreneurial or creative standpoint. So I knew that I wasn't going to ever probably do photography full time, because I never wanted to get to a point where I was choosing to do the craft I loved, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Like the why for me has always mattered the most. And I love what I do because of its impact on people and the way it can change people's perceptions of themselves, the way they feel about themselves. Like it can be a really beautiful and amazing art form. And I never wanted to be taking projects that I wasn't actually excited about just so that, you know, I could pay rent. But for me, the moment that I realized that I wanted to invest my free time in these things was really just coming to the realization that I wanted to feel like I was doing things on purpose because I loved them and because they were meaningful. You know, in college, you know, I took 18 hours a semester. And so like, if you think about it, between that, like that's so little of your week. And I just found myself being like, what am I doing with this time?
Homework.
Yeah, like, right. So like homework, but then also nothing. Yeah. Like really, you know, just kind of selfish, frivolous things, you know, watching TV or video games or whatever. And that was just not good for me. And I realized that it wasn't something that I wanted to become a habit. And so I wanted to figure out, how could I take my free time outside of community, outside of family and relationships, which those things will always be more important to me than money. So outside of having time for my family and my friends and my community of people, I wanted to be productive. I wanted to do meaningful things. And if I could make money doing that, if I could not only impact people's lives, but also, you know, have some income to allow me to do other things, that was a no-brainer for me. And I've really come to learn how valuable having a skill is that makes money as a freelancer, how helpful that is. To have a skill of like, hey, someone could hire me at any given moment to do this thing, and I have a set of skills and a set of equipment that can do that. Not everybody has that opportunity, and not everyone has invested in that skill in some way or another. And so for me, that was kind of like, I really wanted to continue to get better at what I loved. Like I love photography. I love collaborating with people and creating stuff and helping people see themselves in a different way. But I knew I was never going to try to make it my full-time job, because I didn't want to be taking jobs I wasn't excited about purely to like pay the bills.
You talked about how like you said that like you prioritize your family, your friendships, relationships, obviously over money. How do you keep yourself grounded, knowing like if you spent so much more time doing this and creating, like you could make exponentially amount more money, or like even increase opportunities, like being to shoot with like bigger models and agencies and stuff like that. Like you could open up a bunch of doors. Would you ever get to a point where you realize enough is enough? I can't do this anymore because it's like prohibiting me from focusing on the relationships that I have, like with my family, with my mom, with my sister, with all that stuff?
Absolutely. I've run into that in some sense of stretching myself too thin and saying yes to too many things, and then realizing, oh no, I've overcommitted myself. But for me, the balance is just thinking about like what has provided me the most value in my life. Like where have I found the most meaning and joy? And it's never been professional success. Like when I go to bed at night, how much money I've made as a freelance photographer, or the really cool professional opportunities that have some level of status connected with them, those aren't the things that fill me up. Yeah. What fill me up is holidays with my family, time with friends, making memories, really cherishing the people that I love in my life. And that time is profoundly more valuable to me than money. It's time is really that only thing that we don't get back. Like I can waste a lot of money in my life and I probably won't regret it that much, but I will regret all the time I waste. And so for me, I don't ever want to jeopardize the things I know provide the most joy for a selfish amount of personal success that I don't need. Obviously, I have to make time and set aside time to make money so that I can provide for myself, live, right? Like all the things, also invest in a future family. Like I want to be preparing for those things now. And so I'm still going to prioritize that, but there's a balance between making wise choices to get what I need and pursuing a selfish level of success that comes with like riches and attention that makes me feel good because the world has arbitrarily decided that you're more successful if you make more money or you're going to be happier. And like, that's just not true. So for me, the balance is reminding myself of the joy that comes from spending time with people I love will always be more impactful to me and to them than having a good amount of money come in on top of like my full-time job because I'm grinding my passion. I just think that to me is like a much better use of my time.
So I wish I was more like you in that aspect, because if I could prioritize families and relationships, like I feel like I'd be in a lot better place, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, like all those things. I'm just so like, because in the way that I process it in my head is like, I think, okay, if I go like 100% now into this business, that'll free my time from when I'm, older to be able to spend more time. But then it's like, okay, what if it's too late then?
Yeah, but you know how many dads and fathers have said, I can't believe I missed the first 15 years of my kids' lives because I was trying to work so hard to provide for them. And
my dad.
And like, oh dang. And their child looks up at them and says, Dad, I didn't want your money. I just wanted your time.
Right. And that's the part that gets me. And I think that when I do have kids, like that's why like I'm working so hard right now, because I'm like, I want to be able to get to a place when I do have a child that I'll be able to spend so much time with them and they'll be my like life focus and
for sure.
And all that. Because that's like really important to me. But I struggle with the balance, and I'm very money motivated, very like driven. And it's just like, I grew up very poor, so I want that success, and I don't want my kids to have to go through, that either. I want them to be able to not have to worry about any of that stuff. So, I'm grinding now, but I wish that I was more intentional now, because I feel like I'm missing opportunities. I'm lonely. Nights come around, dude, and I'm after I'm done doing all this work, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, man, I am alone. It's because I'm choosing to sacrifice relationships for this business, and that's something that I kind of have to go through in my mind. I'm like, is this worth it? Is it worth this sacrifice?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I get myself to be like, okay, switch on this relational mode, take a little bit of this business mode off, and really just dial in.
Yeah. And I would really encourage you to listen to how your decisions echo in your relationships. Like for the people who you love, the people who you want to invest more time in, talk to them, like see what their perspective is, because what you're saying might be true, where they're, missing and longing for more time with you, but there also might just as truly be their perspective of, I'm so proud of you, what you're doing. And it's so exciting to me to see your success, and I'm cheering you on. And they're not sitting there just sad with that you're not there. Now, you should also probably figure out what you want, right? Like what you need, or what you feel like is going to fulfill you. But yeah, no, I talk about it a lot better than I perform at it, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm always a hypocrite in that I am very good at saying, well, this is how I live and this is what I value.
We're all talked.
Right. And there's times where I'm at home and thinking it's 1 a.m. and I'm still sorting through photos because I told someone that I would get these photos to them by a certain time. And I so value being someone that keeps their word that, like, if I procrastinate, then I'm going to eat it and have to deal with, the late night. And so I totally get that. And I think that's kind of the story of all entrepreneurs is there's a long period of pain and challenges that no one sees. They only see it when you come out and you're successful. And so sometimes you have to remind yourself, hey, I'm in that season where I am grinding and feeling, sparse in the needs that I have, but there's an investment, right, in the long term. But yeah, I imagine that's a challenge.
Yeah, I just want to I want to do better because I don't want, like my mom says it all the time. She's like, I don't want you to regret missing these moments, because what happens if, like, dude, like I could be working so hard to secure my next 15 years. What happens if we never get to see those next 15 years? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And like, I know that if my mom were to get sick or something, like if something happened to like somebody in my family, like I would be devastated because I'm like, oh, well, I don't have time for this. Like, dude, there's no excuse for that. I have to be able to prioritize those relationships. And it's going to come down to me having a moment where I'm like, okay, there has to be a shift. There has to be a change.
Yeah. I think that's a really good litmus test. I think when people are thinking about, hey, how are my choices affecting my life? I think it's kind of sad and it's kind of dark, but to say, hey, if someone that I lost, if someone really important to me, if I lost them tomorrow, would I be able to stand by their side at their funeral and feel good about the way I treated them and the way I invested in them? And if the answer is no, for almost everyone I know, then that might be a good sign that I'm not living the way I actually want to be, because we have an ideal self and then we have who we are. And that was something, when I see family, every time I leave, anytime, I'm thinking like, I want to make sure I say goodbye well, because it will eat me alive for the rest of my life if something happens and I don't ever get another chance to see them. And so it feels weird because we don't ever really encourage people to have really deep conversations with themselves and self-reflect. But like, that's a really good thing to do, is say, hey, if I lost the people that I love the most tomorrow, would I feel good about the way I've been loving them now? And if the answer is no, then you have to deal with that. Like, you have to then decide, okay, well, I'm going to choose to behave differently, or you don't. But the problem is that people don't want to ask themselves questions like that because the answers they don't like. And as soon as you answer it out loud, then you become accountable to those answers. And that's a challenge. I mean, like, no matter what, you're not going to be perfect. So there's, no matter what happens when you lose people you love, you're going to always think about what you could have done differently or what you could have done more of. But like, why not have that conversation with yourself when you still have them versus waiting and then just doubling down on the pain?
Yeah, my mom always says, like, I don't want you crying at my funeral. And I'm like,
how am I not gonna?
Right. It's like, but she says it out of a place of like, you're like, I don't want you to regret not spending time with me, not doing these things. And she's right, and a lot of friends have told me like, hey, like, you're just a crappy friend right now. You're like, you're not, and I'm like, you're right.
Well, you even having that level of self-awareness is very rare. So as much as you probably should work on your friendship, at least your ability to say, yeah, I know I'm not doing the things I should be doing. that means a lot, and that carries a lot of weight, because what's hard for me is when people defend and push back against you communicating to them that they're not treating you well. Because what are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
It's like if I tell someone that I care about, hey, the way you've been like treating me and the way you've kind of been interacting, or your lack of interaction, has made me feel like I'm no longer a priority to you. And that doesn't match up with the things that you've said to me over time. And I'm trying to have an organic conversation and try to like find a resolution. And when the response is, oh my gosh, like just take a chill pill. Like I have a life, I'm busy. That just ends the conversation. Like, what are you supposed to do with that? Because you can't just be like, no, I'm the most important person to you. Like you can't say that. Yeah. But at the same time, if your feelings are valid, like your feelings are valid to feel that way. And so you should be able to have a space to talk about them. And so just for you to be able to say like, yeah, I know, like I'm not the type of friend I want to be. People, there's a lot of grace for that. There's a lot of empathy for people who have that self-awareness and who just own up to it. Because if you were like, no, I'm a great friend, or hey, I'm just trying to like pursue my business, and the fact that you want me to stop, it means you're being selfish, and you like turn it on them, that then becomes just like doubling down on the pain. And so at least that's I'm
not delusional.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I understand where I'm at, and I know that I'm wrong, but I'm not doing the best job at correcting.
Well, right. Now that you've admitted it, you also are accountable to making changes.
So that'll be for the next podcast. We'll be revisit.
Yeah, we'll follow up. We'll check in on 6 months.
Did you do what you said you were going to do?
Are you still a bad friend to everybody and your mom?
And we'll be like, yeah, I'm the worst friend, brother, and sister. I mean, son. I'm not a sister.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, man, to sit down and chat. Love getting to hear from you and what's going on in your life. And I do appreciate your realness and your honesty. It's rare. It is polarizing for sure. And I relate to that of like, some people just don't love it, or it feels too much for some people, but I really value that. And I appreciate you taking the time to come hang out.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me on here, man. I'm excited to listen to the other episodes, and anytime, man, just let me know. Now you're inspiring me to actually take action steps, especially in content. I've been thinking about, re-upping my podcast again for the longest time, and I've just been lazy. So I need you to let me borrow all this equipment whenever the time comes.
Hey, if you commit to using it for the good, it's all yours.
Word. Appreciate you, bro.
All right, man.